The ancient sage Alfred Lord Tennyson. 1,000 summers ere the time of Christ, from out his ancient city came a seer whom one that loved and honored him, and yet was no disciple. Richly garbed but worn from wasteful living, followed in his hand a scroll of verse, till that old man before a cavern whence an affluent fountain poured from darkness into daylight, turned and spoke. This wealth of waters might but seem to draw from yon dark cave, but, son, the source is higher, yon summit half a league in air, and higher, the cloud that hides it higher still, the heavens whereby the cloud was molded, and were out the cloud descended. Forces from the heights. I am wearied of our city, son, and go to spend my one last year among the hills. What hast thou there? Some death song for the gals to make their banquet relish? Let me read. How far through all the bloom and break that nightingale is heard. What power but the bird's could make this music in the bird? How summer bright are yonder skies, and earth is fair in lute. And yet what sign of aught that lies behind the green and blue? But man today is fancy as fool as man hath ever been. The nameless power, or powers, that rule were never heard or seen. If thou wouldst saint hear the nameless, and wilt dive into the temple cave of thine own self, there, brooding by the central altar, thou may saint haply learn the nameless hath a voice, by which thou wilt abide, if thou be wise, as if thou knewest, though thou canst not know. For knowledge is the swallow on the lake that sees and stirs the surface shadow there, but never yet hath dipped into the abysm of all abysms, beneath, within the blue of sky and sea, the green of earth, and in the millionth of a grain which cleft and cleft again for evermore, and ever vanishing, never vanishes, to me, my son, more mystic than myself, or even than the nameless is to me. And when thou sendest thy free soul through heaven, nor understandest bound nor boundlessness, thou seest the nameless of the 100 names. And if the nameless should withdraw from all thy frailty counts most real, all thy world might vanish like thy shadow in the dark. And since from when this earth began the nameless never came among us, never spake with man, and never named the name, thou canst not prove the nameless, O my son, nor canst thou prove the world thou movest in. Thou canst not prove that thou art body alone, nor canst thou prove that thou art spirit alone, nor canst thou prove that thou art both in one. Thou canst not prove thou art immortal, no, nor yet that thou art mortal. Nay, my son, thou canst not prove that I, who speak with thee, am not thyself and converse with thyself, for nothing worthy proving can be proven, nor yet disproven. Wherefore thou be wise, cleave ever to the sunnier side of doubt, and cling to faith beyond the forms of faith. She reels not in the storm of warring words, she brightens at the clash of yes and no, she sees the best that glimmers through the worst, she feels the sun is hid but for a night, she spies the summer through the winter bud, she tastes the fruit before the blossom falls, she hears the lark within the songless egg, she finds the fountain where they wailed ye mirage. What power? Aught akin to mind, the mind in me and you? Or power as of the gods gone blind, who see not what they do? But some in yonder city hold, my son, that none but gods could build this house of ours, so beautiful, vast, various, so beyond all work of man, yet, like all work of man, a beauty with defect, till that which knows, and is not known, but felt through what we feel within ourselves is highest, shall descend on this half-deed, and shape it at the last according to the highest in the highest. What power but the years that make and break the vase of clay, and stir the sleeping earth, and wake the bloom that fades away? What rulers but the days and hours that cancel weal with woe, and wind the front of youth with flowers, and cap our age with snow? The days and hours are ever glancing by, and seem to flicker past through sun and shade, or short, or long, as pleasure leads, or pain. But with the nameless is nor day nor hour? Though we, thin minds, who creep from thought to thought, break into thoughts and whence the eternal now this double seeming of the single world? My words are like the babblings in a dream of nightmare, when the hablings break the dream. But thou be wise in this dream world of ours, nor take thy dial for thy deity, but make the passing shadow serve thy will. The years that made the stripling wise undo their work again, and leave him, blind of heart and eyes, the last and least of men, who clings to earth, and once would dare hell heat or arctic cold, and now one breath of cooler air would loose him from his hold. His winter chills him to the root, he withers marrow and mind. The kernel of the shriveled fruit is jutting through the rind. The tiger spasms tear his chest, the palsy wags his head. The wife, the sons, who love him best would fain that he were dead. The griefs by which he once was wrung were never worth the while, who knows? Or whether this earth narrow life be yet but yoke, and forming in the shell the shaft of scorn that once had stung but wakes a dotard smile. The placid gleams of sunset after storm. The statesman's brain that's weighed the past is feebler than his knees. The passive sailor wrecks at last in ever silent seas. The warrior hath forgot his arms, the learned all his lore. The changing market frets or charms the merchant's hope no more. The prophet's beacon burned in vain, and now is lost in cloud. The plowman passes, bent with pain, to mix with what he plowed. The poet whom his age would quote as heir of endless fame, he knows not even the book he wrote, not even his own name. For man has overlived his day, and, darkening in the light, scarce feels the senses break away to mix with ancient night. The shell must break before the bird can fly. The years that when my youth began had set the lily and rose by all my ways where'er they ran, have ended mortal foes. My rose of love forever gone, my lily of truth and trust, they made her lily and rose in one, and changed her into dust. O rust replanted in my grief, and growing, on her tomb, her dust is greening in your leaf, her blood is in your bloom. O slender lily waving there, and laughing back the light, in vain you tell me earth is fair when all is dark as night. My son, the world is dark with griefs and graves, so dark that men cry out against the heavens. Who knows but that the darkness is in man? The doors of night may be the gates of light. For wert thou born or blind or deaf, and then suddenly healed, how would saint thou glory in all the splendors and the voices of the world? And we, the poor earth's dying race, and yet no phantoms, watching from a phantom shore, wait the last and largest sense to make the phantom walls of this illusion fade, and show us that the world is wholly fair. But vain the tears for darkened years as laughter over wine, and vain the laughter as the tears, O brother, mine or thine, for all that laugh, and all that weep and all that breathe are one slight ripple on the boundless deep that moves, and all is gone. But that one ripple on the boundless deep feels that the deep is boundless, and itself forever changing form, but evermore one with the boundless motion of the deep. Yet wine and laughter friends. And set the lamps alight, and call for golden music, and forget the darkness of the pall. If utter darkness closed the day, my son, but earth's dark forehead flings athwart the heavens her shadow crowned with stars, and yonder out to northward some that never set, but pass from sight and night to lose themselves in day. I hate the black negation of the bier, and wish the dead, as happier than ourselves and higher, having climbed one step beyond our village miseries, might be borne in white to burial or to burning, hymned from hence with songs in praise of death, and crowned with flowers. O worms and maggots of today without their hope of wings! But louder than thy rhyme the silent word of that world prophet in the heart of man. Though some have gleams, or so they say, of more than mortal things. Today? But what of yesterday? For oft on me, when boy, there came what then I called who knew no books and no philosophies, in my boy phrase the passion of the past. The first gray streak of earliest summer dawn, the last long stripe of waning crimson gloom, as if the late and early were but one, a height, a broken grange, a grove, a flower had murmurs lost and gone and lost and gone. A breath, a whisper, some divine farewell, desolate sweetness far and far away. What had he loved, what had he lost, the boy? I know not, and I speak of what has been. And more, my son. For more than once when I sat all alone, revolving in myself the word that is the symbol of myself, the mortal limit of the self was loosed, and passed into the nameless, as a cloud melts into heaven. I touched my limbs, the limbs were strange, not mine, and yet no shade of doubt, but utter clearness, and through loss of self the gain of such large life as matched with ours were sun to spark unshadowable in words, themselves but shadows of a shadow world. And idle gleams will come and go, but still the clouds remain. The clouds themselves are children of the sun. And night and shadow rule below when only day should reign. and day and night are children of the sun, and idle gleams to the air light to me. Some say, the light was father of the night, and some, the night was father of the light, no night no day. I touch thy world again, no ill no good. Such counter terms, my son, are border races, holding, each its own by endless war, but night enough is there in yon dark city, get thee back, and since the key to that weird casket, which for thee but holds a skull, is neither thine nor mine, but in the hand of what is more than man, or in man's hand when man is more than man, let be thy wail and help thy fellow men, and make thy gold thy vassal not thy king, and fling free alms into the beggar's bowl, and send the day into the darkened heart. Nor list for guerdon in the voice of men, a dying echo from a falling wall. No care for hunger hath the evil eye to vex the noon with fiery gems, or fold thy presence in the silk of sumptuous looms. Nor roll thy viands on a luscious tongue, nor drown thyself with flies and honeyed wine. Nor thou he rage Jeffel, like a handled bee, and lose thy life by usage of thy sting. Nor harm in it or throw the lust for harm, nor make a snail's horn shrink for wantoness. And more think well. Do well will follow thought, and in the fatal sequence of this world an evil thought may soil thy children's blood. But curb the beast would cast thee in the mire, and leave the hot swamp of voluptuousness a cloud between the nameless and thyself, and lay thine uphill shoulder to the wheel, and climb the mount of blessing, whence, if thou look higher, then perchance thou mayest beyond 100 ever-rising mountain lines, and past the range of night and shadow see the high heaven dawn of more than mortal day strike on the mount of vision. So, farewell.